This is to answer a question for Joe regarding fear, PTSD, and current world events. He goes on to ask, I've experienced combat in the army when I was just 18 in 2006, and unfortunately I've taken life away from people during that period. I've feared for a long time now that someday I'll have to repay that debt in some way or another, in this life or the next. It lays heavy on me as I now see the world for what it really is. Can you please help? So you are already paying that so-called debt because of the way you're feeling, because of maybe guilt or shame. And maybe current world events are sort of triggering in you that memory, that time period. The potential maybe of having to be drafted to go to another war to do the same thing. You can only do what you can do based on the level of consciousness that you have at any given time. Probably at this level of consciousness now, you would not choose to go in the army. You would not choose to do those things. You probably didn't even want to do those things at the time, but you signed up for the army, and so the army said you've got to do it. They trained you to do it. They conditioned you to do it. This is something that I know, because in my past, I was also in the British Army. I was also trained to do that, to not think. But I managed to make my way out of the army before I was sent off to do that. But there are many that find themselves in that situation, and when they're in the middle of that situation and after that situation, the reality of it kicks in. And it is not what they want. Very few people want to harm anybody else, especially take a life. So that is now in the past, and your level of consciousness was at a certain point at that time. And oftentimes we have to go through things, these challenges, to wake us up, to realize that is not what we want, to realize that is not going to be something that is moving towards the kind of life we want to live, our experience of life, you could say. So you're already in some way paying that debt. But also the ideas of debt, the ideas of maybe karmic retribution and such. You know, in the Bhagavad Gita it says that he who realizes they are not the doer is neither the slayer or the slain. He doesn't do anything because he sees that as a personal separate self, he is an illusion. There is no such thing. There is only the totality of life that is playing itself out, this kind of grand play, where different people have different roles. They have to play out those roles. But at the heart of it all, they are not separate people. There is no separate person there. At the heart of it, it is the totality of existence playing itself out. Playing itself out as the UK army man or an Iraqi army man. So in that sense, in the deepest sense, no one is truly harmed, and no one is the slayer or the slain. And to the mind this might seem like it can use that as a way to justify. That's the danger of how the ego will use this knowledge. To justify and say, oh, well, if there is no me and there is no other, then I can take life at will. I can harm at will. But when you are not there as a separate person, when you have realized the absence of such a thing, there will not be someone there that is looking to harm. There will not be someone there that is looking to take life. At that point, there is a whole different movement happening. There is a whole different intelligence that is fully flowing through that particular body. Who knows what it will do? It may seem to take a life, but when there is no person there, there is no taking of life, and there is no one that takes the life. This is something deeper that must be understood, that must be seen. This is liberation, as it says in the Bhagavad Gita. To realize you are not the doer. So in the deepest sense, you never really took life. That was a program that was happening in the mind. You were programmed by the army, trained to take life, to not question, to react. So there was, in one sense, there wasn't probably even the mind itself, the identity, the personal identity that seems to be there, the illusion of it. Even that part was probably not even making a more deliberate decision to do that. It happened as a reaction, it happened as training, programming. Because essentially anyway, the personal self is nothing but a program. It is made of programs. The whole identity structure, mental structure is a program. So it was pure conditioning, pure programming that took over. And what that does is then it buries, obscures, blocks the true intelligence that is there, which is unified, which does not see distinction, separation in that way, that does not have a personal agenda, that is not seeking to harm in a personal way, does not have some grudge. Come to see that that is what you are, and you will see that at that time it wasn't you, the real you, the true intelligence. It wasn't there. It was a program that was happening. And when a program happens, you can't be responsible for that program. Because it's a state of unconsciousness. When someone believes they are the programming, believes they are this kind of personal self, whatever thoughts come, they go with the thoughts. It's like being possessed. You're possessed by the programming of the mind and the conditioning. In that state you are unconscious. There's nothing that is a response, it's a reaction coming from that programming. So you never did it. The true intelligence that you are never really did it. It was coming out of programming. So in realizing this, you can forgive. To forgive means to let go, to forgive. Let it go. Because you see that also it does not help to carry the burden, the guilt, the shame. That also blocks that true intelligence from flowing. That also is a hindrance to those around you. When you carry guilt and shame, nobody wants to be around someone that carries guilt and shame in that energy. So there is a recognition, the recognition I am not that, I did not do that, but then also at the same time to say, to look at it and to allow it to be something that is a kind of wake-up call. Right? To say that's not the direction to go in again, which you've probably already had that revelation. So the PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, the fear is always of the future. So the fear is probably that you might have to repay this in some way, or you might end up finding yourself in another war. That's all future. Nobody knows the future. It does not exist. There is only this. There is no future. So let that go. As best as you can, let that go. Give it no attention. Because whatever the mind says, it is wrong. Whatever the mind says, it is wrong. It cannot predict the future, because there is no future to predict. And when the future comes as now, the mind cannot know what that will exactly be. It cannot be accurate. So drop the mind. There is no future. There is only this. Timeless. Immediate. And that's where your true intelligence is, in this immediacy. Drop the fear. The post-traumatic stress disorder is coming because of holding on to the past. Replaying it in the mind, that memory. Recognize it was not you. You did not do it. Because there is no doer there. You only believed it was you that did it. Look at the situation. How you were trained, how you were programmed. Look at the mind, the mechanics of the mind, which creates that personal sense of identity. It's just all programming, conditioning from the past. It was not your true intelligence. So as best as you can in that recognition, let it go. Drop it. Drop that illusion. These are all illusions, you see, of the mind. The belief in the illusions maintains the experience of an illusion. So then there is a constant replaying in the mind of what seemed to happen and how you did it, and then there is guilt, and then how you've got to now repay it. All of that is a story of the personal self, which does not truly exist. If you really look for this personal self, I would suggest you won't find a real solid personal self there. You will only find some thoughts from the past. And then those thoughts get projected into the future to become this scenario of what may happen, the debt you may have to pay, and so on. So if you drop that, there is just what is immediately here. In terms of the events of the world, well, they will go on forever and ever. The events of the world will go on for ever and ever, but what matters is your true intelligence. What matters is your freedom. What matters is what is truly immediate and timeless. Because that is the only thing that is forever, always permanent. Everything else is just a fluctuation, a coming and a going, a changing. In every age, in every generation, there are things happening, world events. When World War II was happening, I'm sure people at that time thought it was the end of the world. And there will come events after this time period where people will think that is the end of the world and that is the major thing. All these things pass. What matters is your true intelligence that is here and now. To recognize that, to be that, to find freedom in that, to find peace in that. Because to me it sounds as like this is what you really want. So give all of your energy to that. Don't let the world distract you from that. The fear of what could happen. Nobody knows. These are all just projections in the mind. The mind cannot be accurate. And even when the so-called next moment comes, tomorrow comes, it is always just this immediate instant anyway. So when you come back to this, now you can enjoy this. But if you are in the past, PTSD, if you are in the future, fear, you cannot enjoy where you really are, which is here and now. In this moment, all so-called debts are paid off. This is what has been said, and it is true if you look, because all the debts are in the mind. All the debt is in the mind. If you believe there is a debt, there is a debt. You wipe off all debts as you become conscious. You wipe off all debts as you return back to this immediate intelligence. You wipe off all debts in freedom, the liberation of what you essentially are. Because all debts mean future and past. There is only this here now. Enjoy.